Well, US President Joe Biden and his press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, have repeatedly promised not to make any moves to pardon Hunter Biden.
But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
From a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well,
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's the same the world over, political lies and spit. And of course, in his final days in the White House, Joe Biden today once again went against his word and pardoned his son. Hunter Biden was found guilty of lying about his drug use when buying a gun, as well as tax evasion, and now he's going to be spared a prison sentence. The president, in a statement, blamed a confected witch hunt. He said there'd been a miscarriage of justice. He said the charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. He said no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he's my son. Well, that is some rewriting of history. As you know, this entire story was censored by tech giants 8 years ago. Well, I spoke about this stunning backflip with the author of 2 books related to this case, Laptop from Hell and The Big Guy, Miranda Devine, a little earlier. Miranda Devine, thank you so much for your time as always. Firstly, what's your reaction to the news that Joe Biden, who promised that the law would apply equally to everyone, has now pardoned his son Hunter?
Well, look, Sharri, I think it's probably the least surprising news of the decade, certainly the least surprising news of this whole Hunter Biden saga. It was obvious that Joe Biden was going to pardon his son, despite the fact that he had repeatedly vowed not to do it. He's told reporters that there was no way that he was going to pardon his son, that he promised not to do it, and he was going to not do it because he was a man of his word. Karine Jean-Pierre and the White House podium kept on saying, as recently as just after the election, she kept on reiterating, no, Joe Biden's not going to pardon his son. But Joe Biden never keeps his word. He is always breaking promises. He's always telling lies. So I think it's rather fitting that one of the final acts that this president makes before he leaves office is to break yet another promise to the American people.
Well, Miranda, in his statement explaining his decision, Joe Biden claimed that Hunter had been hard done by and persecuted and unfairly targeted. Miranda, what about your 2 books? Your thorough investigation has been anything remotely unfair. It's really been the opposite, hasn't it? There's barely been any action taken.
You're absolutely right. It's been the complete opposite. Hunter Biden has acted always with impunity. He's broken the law. He's committed crimes. He's admitted to committing tax fraud and tax evasion when he pleaded guilty in September to those felony charges in California that would have carried, at least average a 3-year jail term. And when he was convicted by a jury in Delaware on those gun charges in June, he just knew that his father's power and influence would always protect him. And as you said, in both of my books, in Laptop from Hell and in The Big Guy, I've charted just how his father and his father's minions in the government, whether it be the FBI or the Department of Justice or the State Department or the CIA or even the IRS, have all swung in behind Hunter Biden to clean up his messes, to get him off the hook. He was constantly getting into trouble and being a problem because he was a crack addict and he was ricocheting around the world, just basically extracting money from America's adversaries, from China, from Russia, from Ukraine, all sorts of places that his father, when he was vice president, had power over. Hunter would just sort of invoke his father's name and promise various favors from his father, and he would get millions of dollars.
Miranda, do you think there's any chance that under a Trump administration we will see some of these matters properly investigated for the first time?
Look, I don't know. I know that Donald Trump has just, for instance, nominated Kash Patel to be the FBI director, which has caused great conniptions on the 7th floor of the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C., where the top executives sit, because Kash Patel, when he worked for a congressman who was the head of the Intelligence Committee back in 2016, 2017, 2018, Devin Nunes, Kash Patel was instrumental in exposing the Russiagate hoax and the wrongdoing by various people in the FBI and other members of the deep state in framing, and Hillary Clinton's campaign as well, in framing Donald Trump as being somehow a Vladimir Putin's lackey and agent of Russia. That was all false and shown to be false by the Mueller report, but it crippled Donald Trump's presidency. So once bitten, twice shy. He's now put a real attack dog in there to clean out the FBI. And I'm sure that Kash Patel, it's not about vengeance, but it's about accountability for those people who really perverted the course of justice. And in my second book, The Big Guy, I talk about how with the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden corruption story, the biggest story ended up being the cover-up by those agencies I mentioned, the CIA, FBI, Department of Justice, State Department, and in basically protecting Joe Biden and covering up the crimes of his family and the corruption of his family, and also the fact that he was involved. That was a very elaborate cover-up and really compromised those institutions, the security apparatus of the United States. I think that at the very least, the 51 former intelligence officials, most of them from the CIA, who signed that dishonest letter saying that the laptop was Russian disinformation, I think they will be seeing some scrutiny on their behaviour, and at the very least, they'll have their security clearances revoked. And since many of them are current CIA contractors, they weren't just formers, they were contractors. But even more sinister is the fact that that letter got the green light from the then CIA director under Donald Trump, Gina Haspel. She knew full well, as did everyone who signed the letter, that it wasn't Russian disinformation. And she should have known that the FBI had possession of that laptop since December of 2019. And they'd verified that it was Hunter Biden's, that it was not tampered with, and that it was fit for use in a court of law, which it was used in June in that Delaware courtroom. I sat there and I watched as that silver MacBook Pro was held aloft by the prosecutor, walked across the courtroom, shown to the jury, and then shown to the FBI forensic expert in the witness box who verified that, yes, this was Hunter Biden's laptop. The very laptop we were told wasn't real.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I mean, it's been 8 years now since the laptop was first discovered. It's been such an extraordinary journey since then. The claim of Russian disinformation, the tech platforms removing it, and now, in a sense, it's come full circle. Biden having to take the step of pardoning his son, and we may or may not see more thorough investigation under the likes of Patel and John Ratcliffe. We'll see. All right, Miranda Devine, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharri. It's great to see you again.